Hello, everyone, and welcome to another of our monthly webinars that are held by Customer Success Team. We'll give everyone another minute in case they might be running late. This webinar will be available as a recording later. When I say it's going to be available after the webinar is finished today, it is going to be processed by the software, and the link to the recording is going to be sent out to everyone who signed up. So even those of you who were not able to join for whatever reason, you will still receive the recording. So can you just let me know if you can see my screen? Anyone? Thank you, Lauren. Okay. So we're going to start, and whoever joins us is more than welcome, of course. And as I said, we are going to be talking about the details behind the distribution process, specifically what happens behind the scenes once your book starts its journey. So first thing we're going to be talking about today is what distribution really is. So when we're talking about distribution, we say global distribution, it can sound like a black box. So what happens when you upload your book? You upload your book, you click publish, and somehow it appears everywhere. Now, everywhere is not a single place. It's a network, and it's a network of a very different that is composed of very different ecosystems. And we know that the publishing ecosystem is growing and expanding and evolving as we speak. So, in each of the systems that make up this huge system have their own rules. They have their audiences, they have their expectations. And we are going to be talking about what happens there. So we are going to be talking about retailers. So obviously Amazon, Apple, Google Play Books, Kobo, etc. We are going to talk about the libraries, which are consistently growing. We're going to touch base on subscription platforms. We are going to speak a little bit about global markets and how they differ, so the different territories, and about store-specific behavior, because you will see, and I'm sure that a lot of you are already familiar with this, but you will see that obviously each store has something that is just their own. So we are going to start with the retailers. So they are, I mean, the core of the global distribution. That is something that we all know. They are the most traditional, the most familiar channel, and they are the store. These are the stores where readers are directly purchasing your books. So obviously, what counts as a retailer? So it's Amazon Store, Apple Books, Kobo, Barnes and Noble, Google Play. So, but what's important to emphasize, and what we are going to be discussing in a second, is that these platforms are not just storefronts. They are a combination of a search engine, of a recommendation engine, and a marketplace. So once you upload, and that is something that we see a lot, once you upload your book, just uploading it doesn't guarantee visibility, especially now at any given moment, there are tens of millions of titles available in these stores. And it's important to note that to understand how to make your book more visible by understanding how the retailers operate. So there are multiple things that are affecting how that retailers rely on. So it is going to be the metadata relevance. So we're going to be talking about title, keywords, categories. Our previous webinar touched base on metadata in more detail. Today, we're just going to comment along the lines of in context of stores and how it helps place your book. Speed or sales velocity, conversion rates, and reader engagement. So what this means that once your book is uploaded and available to be bought in any of the stores with any of the retailers, your book is constantly competing for position. Every time a reader searches or browses categories or sees recommendation, the platform is ranking books behind the scenes. We're talking about very powerful algorithms. And the ranking is your ranking, and where your books appear are going to be driven by those factors. So how do retailers actually show your books? So there are three main discovery paths. They're not the only ones, but they are covering the huge majority of how your book can be discovered. So we are talking about search, we are talking about categories, and about recommendations. And we're going to touch base on each of these individually. So when we say that search is one of the main discovery paths, what does that mean? That means that readers are typing in keywords they're using to search, and your metadata determines if your book is going to appear. Strong metadata is going to give you visibility. Weak metadata is not. So essentially, your book will show up in the search if the store system, so the algorithm that individual store is using, can match the metadata of your book to what the reader typed. If there is no match, your book is not going to show up. So, for example, someone types in fantasy, romance, enemies to lovers. And those are all well-known tropes, very popular right now. So the system, the algorithm, is going to scan the backend, the database they have, and they're going to check which books have these words or synonyms or variants or something along those lines in the title, in the subtitle, keywords, and the description. So they are going to be also categories, and it's going to rank those matches. If your book doesn't have these anywhere, the book won't show up. So when we're talking about search visibility here, the metadata we're talking about specifically is the title and the subtitle, keywords, whether they're on the backhand or visible, categories, and description. So those are the things that the algorithm is going to read to understand your book. So also, even if there is a match, the position of your book is going to depend on how closely that you match the phrase, how many fields contain it. So is it just description, or is it description and keywords, or is it title and keywords and description? So that's how many different aspects it's showing, and your performance as well. So metadata is going to give you visibility, is going to affect visibility. Now, we will get to the point when we discuss how stores differ because, like I said, the publishing ecosystem has grown and branched out so much, and there is a lot. So in an hour, we obviously can't cover everything, but I will also touch base on what are the differences between specific stores. So the second way to discover your book is through categories. So when it comes to categories, every retailer, of course, organizes books into categories and subcategories and subcategories. I mentioned romance and the fantasy and romance. Let's say it's romance, it's contemporary, small town, that kind of thing. These categories are affecting the bestseller list, the browsing pages, and charts like top 10, top 100 in X, etc. One very important thing to note is when you choose categories, you're choosing where your book is competing. And I'm going to get to what that actually means. So, in every category, books are ranked based on performance. The simplest, the most basic level is more recent sales, higher rank. It's not just that, it's more complex, but essentially it's the recent sales velocity. Sometimes, if we're talking about subscription bases and library subscription based services and libraries, borrows, sometimes pre-orders. So it's not just most recent sales higher rank, but it is a very significant factor. So depending on that rank, you might appear in top 100 charts. It's going to determine how high you're going to show in category browsing and whether you will get the boost from the algorithm. So there is essentially a positive loop there. So higher rank is going to give you more visibility. More visibility is going to give you more sales. More sales are going to give you higher rank, and so forth and so forth. One thing that is important to note when it comes to this, you're ranked within each category separately. For example, if we go with the romance example from a few minutes ago, your book might be number 5 in like small town romance, but it might be number 3,000 in romance overall. It's that 5 that matters for visibility. Which brings me very neatly to my next point. So the smaller categories, the easier visibility. And this is something that is easily overlooked. So for example, if we are looking at the big category, romance, I'm just sticking to that romance today. I started with that, so we're going to keep it till the end. So if we're just looking at the romance category, it's millions of books. It is extremely high competition, and you really need to have incredibly high sales to rank. So this is really good for someone who is already a best-selling author, but if you're just starting, not great. Again, if you're within a smaller category, for example, the said small town, so romance and contemporary and small town, we are going to be looking at far fewer books. So you will need lower sales to rank, which means that with better categorization and more detailed categorization, you can hit top, 100 lists easier, significantly easier compared to a more general category. So why is this an option? Because the ranking is not absolute. It's relative. It's relative to the category that we're looking at. Obviously, in a big category, you might need thousands of sales to rank, and in a niche category, you might need significantly lower number to show up. And that has the compounding effect. So when you rank in smaller category, say you hit top 100, 200, doesn't matter, you will appear in browsing charts more. That leads to discovery. That helps sales, and then ranks improves. So that is a way how you can help your sales. So you're not just categorizing your book. You are really picking a place where you compete with others. So you want to avoid categories that are too broad, like romance, fantasy. So also you want to avoid irrelevant micro category. If you end up in the wrong micro category, you have done nothing. Don't choose just one. Your book is not, when we're talking about smaller, narrower categories, pick multiple that apply. What you want to aim for is specific categories, relevant categories. So this is where your book is going to belong. It fits to that category, and the competition is going to be lower. So let me just take a look at the categories that some of you have dropped in the chat, and then we're going to continue with recommendations. So lesbian romance is my genre. I would go narrower because it does narrow it down, but it is still very, very wide. Children's books absolutely needs narrowing down. Children's books, that is like half of the books that get published. So it needs to be, that's good as a general category, but it needs to be more granular if you want to increase your visibility. Will this webinar be available as a recording? Yes, everyone who signed up will receive a link to the video, to the recording by end of day today. Again, I guess depending on the time zone, but yeah, a couple of hours after the webinar is completed. So as soon as the recording is processed. Is there a list of all webinars for this year? No, there isn't a pre-published list, but we have one webinar a month. So this is our 4th webinar this year so far. So we are going to continue. I will go back to, okay, so let me just see I just saw another question pop up. How do we research the language to break down lesbian romance into a smaller niche? So you want to look at each individual book, assuming that that they're not in a series. You want to look at each individual books and see what's specific to it, what applies to it. If you're aiming for specific stores, and I assume that you have the stores that you intend to target more, I would go and see which categories you can find on that store. You can also ask AI. You can ask them for a full list of the categories that are available on, say, Amazon under this full list of subcategories under this list, so you don't have to do it yourself. But I would definitely recommend going for a more targeted niche. So one more discovery path when it comes to your book is recommendations. So you have seen those customers also bought because you read this, you might like this. So these recommendations are algorithm driven, and they're going to depend on reader behavior, which can include what they click, what they buy, how long they spend on a specific page, what they're reading, how long they're reading, what they're looking at. This applies to some platforms only, what they abandon immediately. So this is being recorded. This is being fed into the database. Algorithm is using that information to show recommendations. Also, it's going to depend on the titles that you have read, bought, interacted with in any way. So the system is going to analyze the metadata. So again, those that we have discussed before. So the categories, keywords, genre, description, language. Sometimes it's even full text. It really depends. And purchase patterns. So what do people buy together? Or what do people who bought this buy too? So it is going to be we are going to be looking at these 3 discovery paths. Now, I'm going to touch base on the specifics of individual stores because, as I said, they look similar. They appear to be very similar in how their algorithm works, but they do have differences, and it is important to be aware of these differences when you're planning your distribution. Obviously, when you're planning distribution, you want to cast a wide net wherever applicable. But you also want to be aware of, if you're seeing lower sales or something is picking up slower, why that might be, and why you might want to change something when it comes to distribution to a specific platform, or change the entire platform, etc. So When it comes to Amazon, I mean, Amazon is obviously the most well-known, and it is definitely the most competitive retail environment. So visibility is very driven by algorithm, much more than editorial selection. So its system rewards recent sales, strong conversion rates, consistent performance. So that is what pushes book higher. So um, the amount of recent sales, how strongly your book is converting, and consistent performance. Because of this, uh, early traction is very important with Amazon. So books that perform well quickly are more likely to amplify. On the other hand, uh, competition on Amazon is intense. So without optimization, without ongoing activity, without most likely ads, Amazon ads, your titles, especially in the beginning, they can lose visibility as fast as they gain it. On the other hand, Apple Books is different in the sense that it has a stronger layer of editorial curation. So essentially, compared to Amazon, human selections, humans' input plays a much bigger role alongside the algorithm. So they do use algorithm, but it is not the platform itself is not that algorithm driven. It has more of editorial aspect that is conducted by humans. So being featured in curated collections, banners, promotions, usually seasonal or attached to a holiday, those can significantly boost visibility. And sometimes actually more than just the sales performance. So metadata matters, quality matters, presentation, cover design, description, positioning, important impact here. So essentially, with Apple Books, it is the success combines appealing to a more curated browsing experience with the editorial trends. When it comes to Kobo, Kobo is actually quite strong in international markets, especially Canada and parts of Europe. And in those parts, it actually competes closely with Amazon. Amazon is in the lead, but Kobo is a significant competitor in some parts of the world. What's important to note, it partners with local retailers, with local libraries, and expands reach beyond just storefront. So it's less saturated compared to Amazon. It can make it easier for your title to gain visibility. Also, Kobo doesn't have the same, their algorithm is rewarding consistent performance rather than sharp sales spikes. So, like I said, a lot of things are similar, a lot of things are different. So, and Google Play Books, obviously, they have huge global reach, and especially in emerging markets and in mobile first markets. Audiences on Google Play Books tend to be more price sensitive. So, discounts, competitive pricing, they can influence sales performance quite a bit. Discovery is tied to the entire Google's system, which includes search and recommendations across devices. It doesn't have the same volume as Amazon, but it does have a lot of potential for scale across different international audiences because it has really wide global reach. So they're not the same. You want to be mindful of that. Now, moving on to libraries and subscription platforms. So libraries are really a completely different system. So they are a very powerful, and they're growing, and they're proving to be a powerful distribution channel, and also very, very valuable for book discovery. So for new books, for new authors. So libraries unlike retailers. So the readers don't buy your book, the libraries license it. So what that means is that when a library, there are multiple pricing models for when it comes to libraries. They're store specific. If you have questions about individual library, you can reach out to our support team and check. But essentially, you will earn when a library purchases your book, when it is borrowed by users. But as I mentioned, the real value is reach and discovery, because it really makes a difference. So why? Many readers read primarily through libraries, and that is something that we see more and more. You will see a lot. Probably the most people are going to, in the US ecosystem, are going to be mentioning Libby. So a lot of readers are reading primarily through libraries because it is much more affordable. Libraries are going to give you access. Not all of them, depends on the language, depends on the number of factors, but they can give you access to regions where retail sales are weaker. They generally provide long-term visibility in the sense that library catalogs don't change as rapidly to the extent that the retailer catalogs change. So it comes down to how you generate revenue and visibility over time. When it comes to retail, books are driven by immediate sales. They're being ranked by an algorithm, and they're constantly competing for visibility. So depending on that, performance can rise and fall fairly quickly. Compared to this, libraries are operating on a catalog-based model. So revenue is often delayed and is tied to licensing or borrowing. However, the availability is far more stable, and the books are not competing for rank, but they are remaining accessible over long periods of time. So libraries are not about like quick sales. They are intended to build long-term visibility and reach over time. So they give you longevity, they give you exposure. So we also have subscription platform, which is essentially Netflix for books. So they are actually one of the fastest growing channels in digital publishing. Our recommendation reinforced by paid ads are driven only by algorithm. Now, the recommendations themselves are driven by the algorithm. However, they are going to be interspersed with the paid ads depending on the platform. So, but everything that is a result of paid ad should have that noted. I mean, I'm not going to say hidden, but it is discreetly put on the listing, but it should be there. Now, it's not something that you're always going to pay attention to, or not necessarily you, but the readers. But there is a difference, but placement of paid ads is going to affect your placement if your book is only being placed by the algorithm. So again, they're also very fast growing channels because they change how readers access books. So normally you would buy individual title. Here, readers pay a monthly fee, and they get access to a large catalog, pretty much how streaming services work. So this is encouraging users to try more books, to try new authors, and consume content more frequently. So where this helps is discovery. Discovery can be much broader, but also competition for attention within the platform is going to be significant. So probably the most well-known are Avirand, or formerly Scribd, Storytel, and BookBeat. So they, again, operate slightly differently, but they have the same core model. So it's not a one-time transactions. Readers pay monthly subscriptions, and they can move fluidly between titles. They can read multiple books at once. So there is the browsing behavior, again, similar to how we watch Netflix. So this is actually important in regarding to reporting how books perform. So in that sense, for authors and publishers, the biggest shift is how the revenue is generated. So instead of earning royalties per each sale, earnings for these platforms are tied to consumption metrics. So essentially, depending on how many pages are read, how much time is spent, whether a book is completed. So, in practical terms, for example, readers started your book, but they didn't finish it. They're going to generate less revenue compared to the one who read it through the end. So it rewards books that quickly engage readers and that maintain readers' attention over time. So essentially, when it comes to subscription platforms, it's primarily about keeping your users reading. So what performs well? So strong openings, clear pacing, narrative hooks, especially in the first chapters. The biggest drop off is in like first 50 pages or so. Also, books that encourage binge reading, like series, genre fiction, immersive narratives. So they tend to perform well. So here, engagement is the key thing. And a reader who keeps coming back to your books, who finishes your book, is translating into a revenue. So we are going to be talking about global distribution, or rather what comprises global distribution. So when you distribute globally, your book is entering multiple territories, each with its own dynamics. So in that case, you're not looking at a one homogeneous market. You're looking at a collection of specific individual territories. Each of them has its own reader behavior, pricing expectations, dominant platforms, and a competitive landscape. So what works in one region may underperform in another, even with the same book, same metadata, same marketing. So you want to understand the difference between the territories where you're distributing to. And this is going to allow you to set more realistic expectations and also make strategic decisions about pricing and positioning and promotions. We're looking at a number of the biggest and most influential markets globally. So, first one, absolutely, in terms of revenue, in terms of volume, definitely US and UK. So, these are the largest and the most mature, primarily ebook markets. Again, as I said, they have highest overall revenue potential. They're also extremely competitive. So the highest volume of new titles is published in this market, and Amazon is dominant in this area. Readers are used to wide choice, very strong branding, and polished presentation, in a sense that it raises the bar for covers, for metadata, for reviews. So books that perform well early are more likely to keep that visibility over time. When it comes to Canada and Australia, these have strong demand for English language content. However, they are less saturated than US and UK. So Kobo is particularly influential here compared to the other territories, and also more so than in the US. So competition is definitely there, but it is lower compared to US and UK. So well-positioned books can gain visibility more easily, especially in genre fiction. So these regions can get overlooked, and that actually makes them a valuable opportunity for growth. And then there is Europe is my favorite market because everyone sees it as a single market, and it is definitely not. It is very fragmented by language and country. So, for example, English language books are performing well in some regions, particularly Northern Europe. Many markets actually strongly favor local language content. So translation can be a key lever for growth in Germany or France or Spain. And platform dominance also varies. So with Apple Books and Kobo being stronger in certain countries compared to Amazon. India is really up and coming in a sense that it has a rapidly growing digital readership, and they are a high volume and price sensitive market. So readers are highly responsive to discounts, to lower price points, and that can and will very strongly impact performance. Mobile reading is prevalent, and Google Play books have strong reach in India. Earnings per sale in this region are going to be lower, but in the long run, the scale of audience offers potential for growth. One more market that is up and coming and is actually a growing digital market with increasing adoption of ebooks is Latin America. Again, linguistically diverse, like Europe, but less so, and Spanish and Portuguese are dominant. Also, pricing sensitivity is a factor. It is not as extreme as in India, but it is definitely present. There is significant improvement in digital infrastructure, so the region is becoming a source of new readers. So, how do territories change things? So obviously, I have also mentioned pricing expectations. So UK, US readers tolerate higher prices, but emerging markets are going to require lower pricing. And that's something that is like that across the board. Amazon is definitely dominant in US and UK. Kobo is strong in Canada. And there are also local platforms that actually handle most of the business in some regions. Some markets favor mobile reading. Some favor longer form contents. So essentially, you want to make sure that you have the global rights if you're intended to distributing globally. And when you are distributing globally, you control where your book is available. And this is critical if you're planning translations and if you have publishing deals. So it's not going to be global distribution does not equal being available everywhere in the same way. You're entering multiple different systems with its own rules at the same time. So you want to be mindful of that. So we are going to also touch base on the store-specific behavior, or why one book is going to perform differently across platforms. So this is a point that does cause frustrations for authors, where one book is performing really well in a specific channel, significantly differently in another. This is because performance, as we touched base earlier, is not universal, it's contextual. Same book can succeed on one platform, underperform on another. This is due to the environment. So each platform has its own discovery mechanism, audience behavior, priorities. So on Amazon, like I said, performance is heavily driven by algorithms that reward sales, conversions, momentum. You start selling quickly, it gets pushed higher in rankings and recommendations. It creates the positive feedback loop that we have mentioned before. On Apple, algorithm matters, but the editorial curation and merchandising play a much larger role compared to Amazon. So it can give you visibility by being featured in collections, promoted by Apple team. So a book that thrives on Amazon algorithm may not perform as well on Apple. Libraries, completely different model. So platforms like Overdrive that we have mentioned are catalog based. They're not ranking based. So books are not competing for visibility in the same way. So performance is going to be driven by selection, meaning do the libraries buy the title or not, and reader demand over time. So a book that doesn't generate a strong retail sales can perform really well in libraries if it meets the reader's interest or if it fills a niche in the catalog. So again, some stores rely heavily on metadata, the others on editorial. Pricing sensitivity, again, Google Play is very price sensitive, Apple less so. For subscriptions, the price is irrelevant because subscription is not associated with the book price. I mean, the subscription that your end user is buying. Also, there are going to be differences in user behavior between platforms. So, for example, Amazon readers tend to browse heavily, and then subscription readers are more likely to binge content. Applies to books as well as video content. So, essentially, what it means, if your book is underperforming on one platform, doesn't mean that the book is failing. It might be that the platform is not aligned with your book strengths. You want to look at the situation from all the different angles, but this is something that you might want to be mindful of. And also, very important, you want to make sure that your channels work together. So when you look at the distribution as a whole, you shouldn't be treating individual channels in isolation. They function as a system. So each of the channels, each of the stores is intended to support a different part of your book's cycle. It doesn't come, the success, the sales, it doesn't come from just one channel outperforming the others. It might, but overall, you want to make sure that they work together toward the same end. So retailers are going to be like Amazon, Apple Books, they're going to be your primary revenue drivers. This is where direct purchases happen. This is where strong performance generates income immediately. They're also very highly visible. So success there can signal popularity, credibility. However, they are the most competitive. So if you rely on these alone, you're limiting your growth potential. Libraries, on the other hand, like through platforms like Overdrive, have a different role. They are going to give you discovery and reach. So they show your book, they put your book in front of the reader who may never purchase it up front, especially in regions or demographics where buying ebooks is less common. Revenue is going to be slower and less predictable, but it is going to extend your audience and it's going to give you the opportunity for long-term readership. And many readers who discover a book in library later go and buy other titles by the same author. Subscription platforms, they are going to focus on engagement and volume to an extent. So they will reward a continuous reading behavior. So more time reader spends with your content, more you earn. They're effective for building habits. So usually readers who finish one book in the series, they're likely to continue to the next. So through global distribution, you can reach readers in different countries. They are going to have different preferences, different price sensitivity, different platform dominance. A title that performs modestly in one market can actually perform significantly better in another, where it's more aligned with local demand, for example. So essentially, the key insight is that these channels are not competing. They are intended to be complementary. Retail brings revenue, libraries build awareness, subscription give you engagement, and territories, of course, expand reach. So together, you are looking at multiple points and you're increasing overall values. So, one more thing that I want to mention today is what you should be focusing on. So, it is the general overview. We have mentioned a lot of these, but ultimately, what you want to keep in mind. So, you want to focus on having strong metadata. So, clear title, relevant keywords, accurate categories. It is going to make a lot of difference. Platform awareness. So, you want to understand where your genre performs. Pricing strategy. So, you want to adjust for different markets. What is acceptable in one market is going to be significantly higher compared to what other market would ingest, and vice versa. So you want to be mindful of that, and you want to experiment and adjust. You want to have patience across channels, specifically for libraries and subscriptions, because they're typically more of a long-term channel. And do not rely on a single platform. So combine. Obviously, you don't have to use all of them. You can use just some. So you are, but look at what you're what your ultimate goal is. See which combination would work best, and experiment. Okay, so we are preparing the translation of a German book on homeopathy and fairy tales. It went very well in Germany. We were self-publishing. The book will have a good selling possibility worldwide. It is 730 pages, 1.6 kilograms, with some high quality pictures. What would you advise for distribution? Print on demand is no option because of quality. For a book that has a high quality illustration, print is definitely the best way to go. Alternatively, if print is not an option, I would recommend going with ebook, but you would need to look into professional conversion services to make your book completely streamlined, given the illustrations and the volume that you have mentioned. How do you sell your book to subscription platforms? What global reach do they have? Again, depends on the platform itself. If you are one of our clients, you can distribute to multiple through PublishDrive. If you want to go individually, you would have to reach out to individual subscription services to see how you would go direct. How can you determine which platforms can lead to client development? I'm going to need more information on that. I'm not sure exactly what you're distributing and what you're trying to do. How do you take care of distribution pipelines? I have a book published on March 8th, and it's still waiting on store for most stores. And showing is published at 2 places. It actually doesn't exist, despite it is way past declared terms for stores. How can I help with making it available in declared dates? So if you see that there is a delay, first check directly on the store website if it's available or not. When it comes to stores and reporting what's live and what isn't directly in the PublishDrive platform, we have 2 groups of stores. For one of them, we have automated synchronization, and the link is going to show up in our platform when it becomes live on the store's website. For the other group of stores, they will provide us with reports showing which books have gone live, and that is ingested into our platform. Now, we're talking about huge systems, Amazon, Apple Books, huge systems. So not everything is going to be 100% on point. So that's why I'm suggesting that you go to the store website, check if your book is there, if there has been an extended period of time. So if the timeline is like a week, we're talking 3 weeks, reach out to our support team and they can contact the store directly. Since I'm aiming to publish some nonfiction long sellers as against bestsellers, is a slow start with lesser initial marketing all that bad? It really depends, and depends on the store. If you're trying to gain traction from, and you are a new author on Amazon, I would recommend marketing, considering doing Amazon ads from the very beginning. So you want to, as soon as your book is out, you want to do what you can to give it visibility. So I would, obviously that is going to recommend on your long-term plan and on the budget that you have. I just uploaded my book to Publish in PublishDrive. Are they looking out for my correct metadata and other important items before publishing? So the metadata that, yes, short answer is yes, our team is looking. Our team is going to check if the metadata is relevant. However, it is up to you to optimize it as much as possible. So our team is not going to be optimizing individual metadata for each individual title. During the quality control, so during the book review process, our team will check if the metadata is correct. However, if you want to optimize it, if you want to make sure that your book is to optimize your metadata in such a way to increase the visibility of your book across the stores, that's something that you would handle. What do you think, can a philosophical book about Shakespeare reach libraries in China and India? When it comes to China, it's always retailers or libraries, it's a roll of the dice because we really don't have direct contact with the Chinese libraries and retailers due to their overall cultural politics. So there is no guarantee. They can definitely reach retailers in India. They can reach libraries that might be available in India, but I would check which individual libraries are available to readers in that region. If I write on self-development and communication skills. So this is the continuation of a question, how can you determine which platforms can lead to client development? There isn't a specific individual platform that is going to where you would be distributing this type of books. Generally, wide net is your best bet. It is more to do with setting up your metadata correctly, and when it comes to Amazon, definitely investing in Amazon ads. How do I choose keywords to help readers find my technical books? That is, technical books is a very, very large category. For specifics, I would recommend you reach out to support team because they can take a look at the specific book and advise. How long does the review process take for each store? My books are listed as published in PublishDrive, but not available on the store's website. That varies on the store. With the biggest retailers like Amazon, it is typically 1 to 3 business days. During the peak season, it can be longer. There are stores that have up to 30 days. So it really depends on the store. If you feel that there was a prolonged period of waiting, you can reach out to our support team, list specifically which book, which store it is, and our team can reach out directly to the store to see if there is an issue. Prior to that I would definitely recommend you first check directly on the store's website, because sometimes what you're seeing in the platform is not reflecting correctly the status of your book. Also, if you're checking if something has been added or removed, I would definitely recommend clearing cache and cookies, or using incognito mode, because a lot of our clients miss the updates due to that. If I choose PublishDrive, can I have my own ISBNs? Yes, absolutely. So PublishDrive doesn't provide the ISBNs for clients, precisely because if you have your ISBN, you keep the publishing rights. PublishDrive never claims your publishing rights. So we help distribute, but the rights continue to belong to you, and we don't want any confusion about that. What is the best way to reserve metadata for best performance? So it's a whole different conversation. It's a very, very big topic. We actually covered that last month. There I would recommend looking into our help center, where you can find very useful articles regarding optimizing your metadata. Will there be a webinar about using ads? There will most likely be a webinar that is going to focus on advertising, but I don't have the details or the dates right now. Okay, we are out of time, but let me try and answer the questions that are still there. I made an edit to my paperback book, a name change and some metadata change, and it's been over 2 weeks yet, and it has not been affected on Amazon.com. I would recommend reaching out to our support team, because without looking into that, I can't give you more information. I would also appreciate a webinar about ad strategies, considering different categories, and strategies for using promotions available in PublishDrive as well. Thank you for that feedback. That's very helpful. We did do one last year, but we are definitely going to do a webinar that is going to discuss promotions in one way or the other this year as well. So thank you for that. Also, always, if you have any ideas about what you would like to hear about, let us know. What do PublishDrive charge per book, or is it based on books published? So it's based on the numbers of books published. It is a monthly or annual subscription. And if you don't see, you can see all the details are on our website. But if you don't see the subscription type that works for you, you can always reach out to our sales team and see if there is room for, depending obviously on your needs, if there is room for a custom plan. Is there a seminar on book reviews and how to maximize these? I don't think that was done. I think that would probably be a portion of a webinar discussing promotions and increasing visibility. But I will definitely keep that in mind. The feedback is much appreciated. Okay, we're almost 10 minutes over. Our next webinar is going to be last Monday in May. I don't have the topic confirmed yet, but you will be informed through the same channels as this time. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you for all your questions. Feel free to reach out and I hope to see you in one of the upcoming webinars as well. Thank you, everyone. And once again, you will receive recordings. Have a lovely rest of the day, everyone.